Hello and welcome. Today we are in the Tier 9 Pan-Asian battleship, the Bajie. And as you can see, she looks amazing in this camo. She is essentially a Pan-Asian Izumo, as I've mentioned before. Now there are some tiny differences. She has more range at 25.4 kilometers and she is slightly more accurate. The downside is that she has a worse reload, 32 seconds instead of the Izumo's 30. And basically everything else is the same. By the way, the accuracy difference, at least according to proships.ru, the way they calculate it, is around 7%. The difference between 32 second reload versus 30 is also about 7%. Surprise, surprise. So, essentially, you're dealing with an Izumo, and I know many people don't like the Izumo, and as I mentioned last time when I made a video about the ship, I actually think the Izumo's, as a ship itself, is pretty fine. I mean, it's not like amazing, but as in it's not like Musashi, but it's fine. Also, that was a very nice salvo on that Moskva. She was kind of playing with fire, just sailing broadside on. My first salvo might have missed, but eventually I will hit, right? So, what are the upsides of an Izumo, or a Bajie? I think one of the greatest things about the ship and the Izumo is her great armor. Her armor has been buffed multiple times over the years. It's rather effective against AP, and it's fairly effective against HE as well. Even though this, the deck armor looks the deck looks really open, and you can hit shells on it rather easily. You do have to keep in mind that the middle section, which is quite huge, is actually 57mm, meaning that that Moscow over there cannot actually penetrate it with HE, that is. And so she would have to hit the bow or stern of the ship, which isn't something that cruisers usually aim at. And I mean, every battleship suffers from that kind of thing anyway. So, as a comparison to other battleships, Bajie's and Izumo's armor is actually pretty good. And I mean, the guns are pretty decent as well. So, overall, I would say that I actually like the Izumo and the Bajie more than I like the Iowa. And maybe even the Missouri. Because Missouri essentially is an Iowa, right? Except she has radar, but I'll be honest, I am not exactly convinced of the effectiveness of radar on a battleship, because, okay, I radar the enemy destroyer. If the destroyer has some idea that I have radar, she'll just turn away and start wiggling, and then I'll hit like one AP shell on that destroyer. Or if I fire HE, I'll hit the gun turret and then it explodes and does, well, no damage because it hit the gun turret instead of the destroyer. So I'm not exactly ecstatic about Missouri, and Iowa in that sense is, I think, even worse. And I think Bajie and the Izumo are just fine compared to them. So, what have we done so far in this match? Well, we've hit the Moskva once, and then we've basically done nothing because we've either missed or done no damage because we're at 31k damage, and we hit the Moskva for 30k. Anyway, the enemy seems to be pushing up, and looking at the minimap, I can count. We can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 red ships heading in this direction, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4 green ships. Now, the Edinburgh gave us a very nice smokescreen here, which allows us to turn away, although I'm not actually sure whether we would have needed it, considering the Edinburgh was so close that she would probably be the target anyway. That's why I just fire regardless. Edinburgh is going down, despite my warnings to her to try to get out of there, but it's fine, we just need to disengage, and I mean, if you look at the minimap, I think our team is in an advantageous position. Sure, it's not great that our Salem and Alsace and Lenin and Aerroon are really far away, but I mean, eventually they will get into the fight. And we will be holding the B and C caps, whereas they will hold the A cap, thus they will have to push into us. So all we really need to do over here is do a fighting retreat, and just survive. Now the nice thing is that their destroyers have been taken out, meaning that I'm not going to be haunted by a DD that keeps chasing me and trying to torpedo me. Which is something that's quite annoying as a battleship. I suppose, Missouri's radar does have some advantages there in that it makes the destroyers not want to be near you. But here we're just disengaging. And I mean, if we can just deny the enemy the cap for as long as possible, that's even better. Here, I choose to slow down for a little bit. Not quite a stop, but to 1/4 speed, because I noticed that the red ships seem to be more intent on shooting some of my allies over here rather than me. You know, the Bismarck and the Tsar with me. Which means that I don't actually need to get quite as far away from them, because the further I get, the less accurate I'm going to be, or the less shells I will put into the red ships. Which, you know, I would like to put as many shells as possible into them. Also, this is the point where I realized that maybe I should try to flank the enemy. That is, I should try not to run away, which is exactly what I'm going to do. So I'm going to turn around, because remember, I'm unspotted due to the fact that they have no destroyers. And this allows me to simply just turn away and sail back to where I came from, because then I'll have them on the broadside. Because if you look at the map, obviously they're going to be broadside to me. Because they'll... If they're not stupid, they're going to angle towards the green blob that's in the middle of the map instead of me. And thus, this should be a pretty good position. And I'll start out with hitting this Richelieu for a massive 4000 damage. That's an amazing salvo, Aerroon. Well done. But I mean, the point still stands, right? Even if they angle against me, they won't angle against the rest of my team, so regardless of the situation, it will be a good position, I think. And I mean, I also get nice salvos on ships like that Hindenburg. Well, if I actually hit, of course. Okay, I take that back. I did hit, but that's not exactly a very nice salvo. I guess the Hindenburg accelerates slightly faster than expected. So I want to try to take out the Hindenburg because she is flat broadside compared to the Yamato, although I guess right now would be a pretty good time to try to hit the Yamato too. However, I think taking out the Hindenburg is slightly more important. Goodbye, Hindenburg. Or not, I guess. 6 overpens. A massive 211 HP left, but I guess that's not up to me to finish off. So now, next up, we'll try to focus on the Yamato, except she is angling against me. So perhaps not. And here you just saw a great, you know, the great Izumo armor scheme at play. In that the Yamato actually hit the side armor plate rather than the bow that she would like to hit to try to overmatch, which meant that she only did 4000 damage. Well, at least we finished off the Richelieu. Next up is, I guess, the Yamato, because we'll most likely end up being on the side. So as you can see, this Yamato actually doesn't deal that much damage to me, despite the fact that she can obviously overmatch my bow. So why? Well, one thing you want to do is you want to be angled towards the enemy, but you also want to be moving in a way where the enemy just ends up hitting your side armor plate instead of the bow or stern. And that's exactly what I've been trying to do, so you want to turn in. Here I tried doing the same thing. I mean, it kind of worked. I definitely got Citadel there, because I did take 22k damage. However, think about it. I was essentially broadside to a Yamato within 3 kilometers, and I only took 22k damage. We're gonna do much dirtier things to this Yamato in a moment, okay? Yeah, see? Worked out much better than it did for the Yamato. Now, though, we're in a bit of trouble. You see, I'm turning in towards the Friedrich der Grosse. However, what I really should be doing is turning the other way. Yes, that would open me up for the Friedrich, but, you know, I have a Lenin next to me who obviously took advantage of that. And unfortunately, you can get citadeled on the ship and Izumo. However, I would say I had a pretty nice game, considering I got 10 citadels off in this match and did 172k damage. Flanking this time worked out really well. And I think that the only reason it really worked out is because they didn't have a destroyer left. If they had had a destroyer, she probably would have been stalking us, and in that case I would not have been able to turn around to do the flanking thing. But it also goes to show that her concealment is average. It's what you would expect from a battleship, more or less. Also, what is HE? What? Friedrich der Grosse firing HE? Was she firing the destroyer or the Salem? Can't actually tell, but regardless, didn't really save her. So now it's just the Lenin left, and she's not going to be visited by the deep water torpedoes, but I do think she is going to be, never mind. She is not going to sink after all, because the game ended before that. Still, a nice game. Not the greatest, but pretty good. 10 citadels is not something I get quite often in battleships. Sadly, not number 1. I was overtaken by this British destroyer, but tier 9 in a tier 10 game. A very effective game. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video. I would like to thank the Patreons on Patreon. Thank you very much for your continued support, Kablamo. And I hope I'll see you guys next time.